Welcome to the Healing Table, where we courageously confront the truths that shape our lives. In today's episode, Masculinity Didn't Break Us, Silence Did. The cost of not saying the thing. We unravel the deep cost of keeping our pain silent. Together, we explore how the quiet struggles of men in our society carry heavy burdens that often go unseen. Stay with us as we break through the silence and reclaim our healing one conversation at a time at the Healing Table. Once again, thank y'all for being here. It's been enjoyable doing all these sessions. We're on session number 5 today, y'all. And this one, I wanted to go a little different direction, but staying within our space of manhood, masculinity. So here's some thoughts for y'all, Grow and Mike. Masculinity didn't break us. Silence did. The cost of not saying the thing. When y'all hear that, what's resonating?
Well, I'll jump in. First of all,
take your time, Pastor.
There's a myth around men not being emotional or emotional available. There's actually studies that prove, not that it's competition, that men are actually more emotional than women. We just been taught not to show it. And so when you don't show your emotions, in a sense, you're sacrificing a piece of yourself. So the cost of not saying the thing is you. It's your spirit. You're pushing down parts of you that not only you benefit from, that others can heal from. And so, I love this title, Masculinity Didn't Break Us, Silence Did. When you stop loving you or you're sacrificing pieces of you, you only can show up partially.
Mm.
And so, when you showing up partially, we were talking off air, then that means your cup is half full. And so if your cup's half full, you can't create overflow for something that's half full. And so you're showing up for your family. You think you're doing the thing, but your silence has allowed you not to pour into the overflow. So what you're thinking that you're doing, you're not actually accomplishing, because you sacrifice pieces of you. You now sacrifice pieces of your family, pieces of your marriage, pieces of your fatherhood, pieces of your own masculinity in order, I don't want to say to make other people comfortable, but to fit in a mold.
Yeah. Yeah, all of that. Because I think when you think about what it means to be a boy, and for me, particularly in the context of this conversation as a Black man, when we talk about the generational stuff, one, I don't know my father, so I don't know any of the men on his side of the family. So generationally, what came through that family to me that I don't even know to look for, right? Identify all of this stuff, right? In that absence, the place of inquiry becomes, which way do I place that place of inquiry, right? Without sort of absence, right? You don't have something to start from. Then I think about how their masculinity was stripped from them the entire time, right? In slavery, right? And even in freedom, quote unquote, right? We're going to let you be free, right? There's something there in the let you, right? That we need to look, right? So when we think about, there's a part of that, my ancestral Black male voice that had to be silent to be alive and survive.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody has demonstrated sort of care for that experience to the point of us addressing it with the right tools and things that we need to unpack this, which is why we're all on these healing journeys, because We are these boys born into all of these conditioning, and some of this other stuff was before us. And then when the man is absent, nobody is giving us the stuff to say, hey, I went through this, so you there. And so we are of that parent generation that we are trying to open those conversations where our kids have that different set of tools than the tools that we had, that we are now in this age now doing. So when we think about growth and performance, nobody gave any of us the tools to heal. Nobody gave us even the tools to love ourselves. So if you don't give me the tools to love myself, I got no shot at finding my voice, because I don't even know how to I find it. And that's why we have the voice of rebellion, right? That's why we have the voice of being unloved, right? That's why I have the voice of being something trauma happening to you, right? That's why we speak from all of these voices, because when some of those things happen, people then justify, oh, that person's speaking out about this because this happened. Versus what we're talking about, I should be able to talk about how I feel and what's going on inside of me without having to have some valid reason. I shouldn't have to lose somebody in my family to be able to cry in front of the woman that I'm with. Right? And so when we talk about the definitions of masculinity that exist for men, we are told not to play with a doll, knowing that there's a probability, flip of a coin, that we can have a daughter someday. That positions us one day to play with the daughter with the doll. Guys, there's a part of this place where the silence, particularly coming from this place of me being a black man, because I certainly don't have the privilege that a white man has to just say whatever the hell they want to say, or to talk to their women the way they talk to their women, in a way that I couldn't even ever get by in talking with sort of that way. And so this is that space where I think in these conversations, these questions are valid on this sort of superficial surface. Well, we got to unpack this deep onion of where this starts. So when I talk about having these four boys, helping them find their voice, we're also feeling like they're not talking back to their mama, not talking back to me, and I'm not shutting them down. That is a complicated song and dance, especially as the bass in their voice started to get bigger. They started to get taller than me, and I'm starting to go, wait a minute, what's happening here? Hands on my hips, right? Now I got to think through, right? Who told me this? And how do I, and how am I supposed, look, I'm learning this on the fly. And because of my own intentionality of pouring into my own cup, I'm showing up in a way of growth and performance in front of these boys and these two girls. And guys, I'm figuring this shit out on the fly. Y'all are my aces. I hear with y'all. So y'all know the complications of what this looked like. And so there is the silence of man. And I'm going to park this here, where Yana Vassant makes it really clear, and I think she says it really, that we're judged based on our performance. So if we're judged based on our performance, I have to be silent about where I don't think I'm performing at. Because for me to tell you where I think I'm growing at is for you to say, oh, well, you ain't there. Remember when I met you, you was here? I was 17 and I was getting this step. So I was telling you the step that I was on. But now you feeling like, oh, because you met me on this step. Man, you met me on a step at 17 because that's where I was. You didn't meet me on no step because I was incapable or incompetent or any of these things, right? And so when we talk about this performance, there's a silence that comes with, particularly being, I'm going to pull this into, because I know enough of them, Black and brown men, where there are these expectations of who we have to be to say that we are a man. And when the definition of being a man is so fucking rooted in white privilege and access and all this other bullshit. And so when I think about Coach, me and you coming out of a homeless situation, when y'all say we should know some shit, what the fuck do y'all mean by this? Because I had to be silent because I did not have any words to articulate. What was I going to say to my mom at 3? Why are we always changing places? All I wanted to be was wherever my mom was. Mm-hmm. So there was a silence inherent in that because I didn't know nothing about nothing. So when I went to places and my mom said, hey, we going in here. Again, we're in somebody else's house. We're at a shelter. Hey, y'all got to be quiet. Y'all can't cause no trouble because this ain't ours. There's a silence that gets rooted in how we navigate. And again, as I'm going through my own growth, there's a natural, healthy silence that I'm just contemplating. I'm channeling. I'm meditating. I'm trying to figure out for myself because the world has not given me space to say, I'm trying to figure this out. Would you kindly give me some guidance? without us having the sense of it's going to be used against us as something we didn't know or some level that we was not at. The path for us to grow, when I look at these questions, they are inherently in all of the headwinds that get in the way of our growth. There are so many damn expectations. Again, this emotionally unavailable. Again, guys, before we was dating somebody had labeled us this. Before we even dated, like, guys, this shit. And now you got to spend time trying to get to know them and unpack some shit that I didn't even give you this information about me for you to have this. So there's sometimes where it's silence of going, I just don't even got the energy to unpack this loaded set of expectations that have been set to me, because in my own growth and healing, I'm not trying to do that performance right now. But if I say I did want to do that performance, I'm going to find that energy to make that performance so I can make that thing happen. Again, just connecting to our previous session where we talk about growth and performance, this is rooted in this intricacy. So when I talked about all those layers and levels, this thing, I don't know that my kids know that I'm breaking any silence because they never met the man who birthed me. Right? My kids don't know nothing about having a father who is unwilling to be open and communicate with them. My kids don't know that experience. Now, I'm sure they've seen it on TV. They know friends who don't got dads, so they can probably imagine that it's there. But my kids don't know that experience because I don't think about breaking silence as a change. I'm just trying to do the best I fucking can as I learn it and as I can unpack it and heal it and grow it and try to be comfortable enough with it to the point of saying, well, let me try to impart this in these boards because I think this is some good water to put in these roots here. And so when we think about this, man, we have a lot to unpack just learning how to be ourselves. And so when I think about this conversation, I think part of this rubric is where we have to say it's full on. Yeah, masculinity didn't break us. And it absolutely was silence that did. Because we pay a cost when we do say the thing.
Okay. That's deep. You said a lot, and Mike took all what y'all said. This when I came up with this thought, right, it challenged me. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little challenged. I was like, damn, this sucker's challenging me. I'm not one to be silent on things, but every everything that I'm going to answer is going to start with my own personal lived experience because that's I lived in that space, right? And this question makes me think of two things. It makes me think of being a fatherless child, so I was always around my mother, and I have an older brother, but he didn't want me to be with him because the age gap was too big, and he was on the streets doing shit that I was going to trick on him on, right? And it didn't fare well for me to be around him. So I
He was saving your life.
Yeah, so I always got sent to hang out with my sister, right? And people, I remember males used to say like, "Oh, you let him hang out with his sister too long, he's gonna be a faggot." That's what they used to say back in the day. He's gonna become gay, you know. And I used to be like, "What the hell is talking about?" Right? Because for me, I ain't trying to be conceited or anything, but I had two girlfriends in kindergarten. I was ahead of the game. All right, talking about masculinity, I was masculinity in kindergarten. I was already feeling my balls already, right? Why I say this, y'all, I think of that part, just all that package that. Always being with my mom because I'm a mama's boy. Like you grow, I was like, I'm going where my damn mom's going, no matter where it at. Where she goes, I go, right? And then there's the always being with my sister because my brother didn't want me to be with him, right? Because I was too small. And my sister's, she didn't want me to be with her, but she ain't had no damn choice. And then my sister's hanging out with 8 other females. So I'm the only male in that space, right? Why I say that came in my mind and all the ridicule I received from males in that space, right? Which made me feel like I had to be more aggressive. I had to get in more fights because I ain't got these scars on my face because I fell off a bike. I fought a lot. Right? That's my past. I'm a gentle giant. Y'all know that. I'm a gentle giant now. But in the past, I threw a lot of hands because I was trying to like own my own masculinity in this way that I thought it was masculinity. It was the image
Yeah.
of masculinity. It was an oasis in the desert of masculinity because that shit fucking wasn't real. It was a mirage, what I was seeing, right? Then it makes me think, and then I go with this one to my first 10 years of being a father and how I was basically role modeling what I saw I thought other great fathers did. My discipline was different. I wasn't as open. I was more stoic. Didn't say I didn't love them because I always loved my children. But my first 10 years as a father, it was a stupid game I was running.
Mm.
It just don't, now I can reflect on that, right? I've been a father for 30 years. So I can reflect on that and be like, oh, damn, that was stupid. Why did, I said in another segment, my son reflected with me, my 30-year-old, about, you remember you told me go in the hallway and don't cry in front of people? Didn't even remember who the fuck that person was. I'm like, who
Right,
is
right,
that?
right,
That ain't me,
right,
right?
right.
But then I remembered that was me. That was for me. And that was me taking different pieces of people, even my grandfather Carmelo, who I love to death, right? But Carmelo also made my mom iron his drawers, right? There's all this masculinity that wrapped up, and I
Mm.
packaged it with all this imagery of what I saw, right? And then I had, when I was younger, I had one white friend. They were the O'Connors, and I saw because my mom didn't have a ride. Their dad used to pick me up with the O'Connor brothers to go bowling, right? So I also captured that imagery. And it felt weird because I was like, well, I'm never going to be John Sr. in this motherfucker, right? I'm never going to be him. So it was all these different imageries that painted and crafted. And then just me as a younger rebellion, full on machismo man type shit, right? Let's add all that in there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I was
yeah.
packaging that, and I thought that's the kind of father I needed to be. And I boxed my father in. All my fatherhood, I boxed it in with all this fake imagery that it was real in person, but it didn't relate to me. And what I didn't realize, because I didn't have a father, I didn't realize that every father does everything differently, right? I didn't realize that, just because this father has that doesn't mean you gonna have that, right? Like it
That's right.
was one of those things where it was like, just let me replace it, put it here, let me replace it, put it here. And that's what a father is. I got about 10 motherfucking examples that made me a dad. And not
Yeah,
one of them fared well because none of them were me. Ooh.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
was me becoming me, the dad, Adam, the dad. And that took a lot of work. That took a lot of healing. That took a lot of me letting go of that masculinity. And that is the motherfucking thing. I had to let that go and get more in touch because I don't have daughters like you two brothers. Right? I don't have a daughter. I have none but boys. But sure as hell, I wish I did have a daughter. Not that I don't, I love my boys. But I
Right,
always
right,
fantasize
right.
how it would be to have a daughter, right? Like, what
Yeah.
is that? What kind of softness is that? What kind of approach is that? Right? I can go down the damn list of things,
And
right?
it ain't nothing that we could even describe to you could truly understand it till you got it experienced. It's a different
So
level of
I
melting, bro.
so I say this to say my thing that I'm gonna call out is just that, right?
Yeah,
Because I never had the proper image of a father, and mom's was my pops, definitely, right?
Yeah.
But because I didn't have that, I was capturing in different ways. Even from Cliff Huxtable, I took some samples from him, right? Just go down the line of all these different fathers I was seeing,
yeah,
and it's one of those things that if I reflect on it now, and then I know like what kind of father I am now, right? The father I was 15 years ago, I am not the father I am now,
Yeah. There,
and I shed a lot of that stuff.
yeah. Adam, yo, fire, brother. Like when you were talking, you reminded me of so much of me. And I would say for the first, if I even giving myself grace, 12 to 14 years of my father, me being a father, I would say I wasn't a good father.
Mm.
It was all performance. It wasn't until I started growing that I actually walked in my truth and started to realize the best father for my kids is who I am or in who I'm being, my
Mm.
inner self. And I think like the first 12 to 15 years is all propaganda. It's all propaganda. This is what a
Mhm.
father does. All this fake masculinity, all this fake stuff. You got to be tough, punish
Mhm.
your kids, do this, this, and this. You do it because I said so. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. All this stuff, and I'm like, why? Because the kids have to be respectful, and they have to do all these things, and this, and this, and I'm like, what I know now, kids just need to be loved. Start with love and everything else will work its way out. And like when I see the word masculinity, I wonder, I don't know the definition verbatim, but like I wonder what people think about that word because it says men. I think people associate masculinity with men, and then they associate femininity with women. But if you're saying I need to be a man, but you want me to be emotional, available, which you associate with women, you're asking me in a sense to be something that I'm not.
Mm.
So now I'm a little confused, and I'm similar to you, Adam. I'm a sensitive ass person. I am emotionally intelligent to the 80th thousand degree. I can read emotions. I have a lot of emotions, all these things. And I think talked about this earlier. Like I used to hate that I was so damn sensitive until I realized like that's my superpower.
Mhm.
But when you're growing up, and I used to get mad at myself of how sensitive I was because
Mhm.
I can feel pain in the air. I could feel it in the air
Mhm.
and it would affect me. I would start crying and like I used to get mad, like, my why the fuck are you crying? Like, no, you're just super empathetic, dude.
Mm.
And like that's what this world needs. But if you're always crying in front of your boys, or because you
Mhm.
see something, because you see homelessness and a mom with a child, and you see that and it's cold outside, like I feel what they're feeling. That
Mm.
wasn't my experience, but I can feel it. And with my grandma, we talk about those people. She's all about service. In my head, I'm like, how can I help? And I
Yeah.
can't. And so that hurts me inside. So when you see these tears, it's not. It is sensitivity, but it's coming from a pain of wanting to do something I don't have the power to do, and like that builds silence, right? But it also made me think like masculinity has sensitivity in it. And people don't understand that. Masculinity to me is about being who you know who you are.
Mm.
So I get Mike Sykes gets to define masculinity for him. Nobody else does, not society. I get to be me. And when I'm me, my authentic me pouring into myself, pouring into my healing, pouring into my growth, I'm the best type of father. But when Mike Sykes wasn't pouring into himself and who didn't know who he was, that was questioning his quote unquote sensitivity, not walking in his strengths, not walking in his superpowers, I was performing
Mhm.
fatherhood. And performing fatherhood harmed my kids. I was perpetuating a status quo like Growfessor that wasn't built for me. And I was, in a sense, doing the things that I fight against now
Mhm.
in my household.
So if I can pick up exactly right there, and I'm glad you brought it back because that was the note that I wrote. Because I think I'm saying this to both of you brothers, and I'm saying it to every man who has a child. I want to say this from myself to you all and to us as a whole, which is we got to let go this notion that when we first became a father, we were somehow bad. Well, we got to give ourselves grace for what we didn't know, and we got to give ourselves grace for us learning that the stuff that we were given it no longer worked. So when I think about my first 10 years of fatherhood, I was giving them the father that I wanted. Now, here's the thing.
Mhm.
They have no clue about the struggle that I was going on in my head. Because in their mind, my daddy's right here. I'm at the park with him. I'm doing this. So me, all of this rubric that I got going on in my head, they are none the wiser. When you brothers say you were not good, you guys are not putting these kids in harm's way. You guys are not doing that. That we first discipline our kids in the way that we got disciplined. Guys, how's we gonna know this was different before we had our own kids? We had to go through that to kind of go, wait a minute, I could talk to my kid a whole host of other different ways to get them to not do something without having to sort of do this. You have to grow. This is where growth and performance, guys, they're so intertwined. And when I hear you guys sort of using that sort of negative energy language you should not be holding, which was I was a bad father, versus, man, I was learning. Man, I'm 23 years into my fatherhood. I am 23 years better than when I first started. That's kind of how I think about it. Because I don't know what it's like to be a father of a 30-year-old son. None of my kids have kids. I don't know what it's like to be a grandchild. How am I gonna look at them and they say, hey bro, you can't do your kid like that? And now they gotta tell me, bro, that's my kid. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I don't know how I'm gonna feel. Right. And so because I've never had nobody question me about how I engage with my kids. Right. So we got to give ourselves that grace of learning and going through it. And as we, to your point, Mike, as we start to say this doesn't feel right, we're listening to our body, something is telling us this don't make sense, and we start to do the excavation work to figure out what am I missing? And right, and now we go, what am I missing? Hey, you know what? This don't work. Let me do something else. This don't work. So we have to free ourselves from the rubric of so that we can give our kids something that we didn't have. But you got to go through the parenting process to be able to figure out what that looks like. Because to coach to what you said, just because Mike did it this way and coach you did it, don't mean it's going to work. Now, the thing that we should start to get from somebody is, well, shit, I know it's possible. Because them two brothers figured it out, and they figured it out for their household. Well, you know what? Let me start to get curious about how I want my house. Now we start to go introspectively inside ourselves. And so again, I got to do what I got to do to survive. And so before I had my first kid and I didn't realize that, whooping him wasn't really the thing that was changing anything, I had to whoop him the first time to get that answer. There are some facts of you got to spoil some milk to kind of know what that looks like. Lived experiences. None of us will escape that. The human experience and the human conditioning are undefeated because you get the human experience, you get the human conditioning right out as a birth that shapes your early human experiences. And then you get to the point that you go, wait a minute, if I want better experiences, wait, is it this conditioning, right? And this is that again, that's why I always talk about deconditioning. So Mike, everything that you said in terms of thinking about how you was in your early father, you had to go back and excavate that work and say, this doesn't work for me. What does work for me? Coach, you talked about having a set of 10. Hey, you know what? I tried this. Wait a minute. I tried this, but I tried this because I saw that. Did I try because it makes sense to me? Well, let me try something that just makes sense to me because the one thing I do know is about this kid. And so now I'm custom designing. And that's what we also know about parenting because we also learned that the way I parent this first one ain't the same way I'm parenting this second one and the third one. And look, bro, and we can all say, I tried it. It worked with the first one. Yeah, that kid rebel. And you be like, okay, this bad trick ain't going to work for kid number 2. I'm going to have to come up with a whole new tactic, a whole new rubric. But what do I do with the first? So again, guys, all of these things, when you get a third kid, how do you now juggle 3 kids? Everybody is in different things. How do you deal with yourself as you are out providing and the things that they're out doing are the stuff that you paved the way for access to. And now you're not able to be there in person because you can't do it all. Right. And so all of these things, guys, we aren't doing bad. We gotta give ourselves credit for just trying. So for all of us listening, guys, give us some goddamn credit. Like we came out of some shit, we figured it out, and we just doing the absolute best that we can. Now, you ain't shit niggas who are doing some harmful shit to your kids, die fast, they're fast. But again, for those of us who are just out here trying and really sort of being, doing what we can and really unpacking our own shit as we try to give it to them, man, be graceful for yourself, because you still are also, man, I'm about to turn 49 next year. I'm still learning how to do this. I'm learning how to go home. And I got to learn how to be their dad at the same time and this person's spouse at the same time and learn how to take care. Guys, I can't learn every goddamn thing all at the same goddamn time. So somebody's going to have to get some level of performance that's on some sort of rubric of my goodness that said, oh, you got some, just give me some grace to say I'm trying. And to you brothers, don't ever say again that first 10 years or whatever that you were bad. If you don't brace yourself, say, look, man, I was doing the best I can. And as I was learning about some of the best that I thought I was doing, I was realizing that wasn't best. That was somebody else's. And I created my custom stuff. So if we can be nicer to ourselves in our own language, and as Paulo Coelho says in the Four Agreements, to be impeccable with your word is for you to not to use negative words to yourself about yourself.
Well, first of all, Growfessor, don't be using my stuff on me. And if I was coaching myself, I wouldn't allow myself to use that kind of language. So thank you for calling me on that. I was a parent working on getting better.
Yes, love it.
So thank you for that. That's a good reminder. And the other thing for Coach, before you go, is one thing that I do that I do know, and I want people to know, I don't hold my growth as a parent when I didn't like everything that I did against me.
Yes.
I don't hold that against me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I'm also not that person that I used to be.
That's right. Which is why you shouldn't hold it against.
Yeah. And so I just want people to, all those fathers, parents in general, to understand it's okay to make mistakes and things like that. And the person that you are now doesn't have to be the person that you always been. And so, like, when we're even bringing it back to like masculinity and femininity or parenthood and all these things, the cool thing with going through any kind of struggle is there's a lesson to be learned. There's a lesson to be learned.
Yep.
And so if you're in the storm, if you're in the fire, you don't know which way is up, you don't know what femininity is or masculinity is, it's okay. You know why? Because you're uncomfortable. And nothing great comes from being comfortable. Growth comes from being uncomfortable. So you're in the storm, there's lessons that you can be learning. So when you're planting those seeds of love, of forgiveness, of value and validating yourself, during that storm, during that rain, you're not only planting seeds, but you're watering you're watering the soil, you're tilling the soil so you can have a forest of love later. But you have to do the work and loving you of planting the seeds.
Can I really quickly just, again, it wouldn't be me to not do this, but the definition of comfort and discomfort. Can we start to articulate to folks that in discomfort, you're simply moving from the place you've known to a new space? So the discomfort is you're dismounting from that space. You're moving out of that place. And so in your place of comfort, you're sitting on so much potential. And to move what we know for potential, you got to get some energy. So that means you got to get Connecticut to move. So in that Connecticut effort that you have to have, you're going to learn something new, right? This is what we were talking about when we were talking about fatherhood. God, the kid now know how to walk, but learn something new, right? Can't turn my head too long, right? Need to figure out what a kid is, right? All of us got to learn that silence means I'm about to walk into some chaos, right? And so we speed back. There's this pace of just walking through that I just want us to sort of meet ourselves, that when you're moving from point A to point B, discomfort, we got to take away the negative energy around discomfort. Because if you are intentional about that move, you're going to have to do something that, again, you're leaving this place where that potential was sitting or where that other stuff was. And now in this other space, you're now encountering something new. You may feel a little lighter because you've let go something. You still may be dragging something, whatever that case may be. But the discomfort, it's not, we have such an association with it being a negative feeling versus we got to think about getting out of our place of comfort as, man, something good is happening on this other spot over here because of what I know I'm moving intentionally from this one. And so we don't even hype ourselves up about moving to this new spot. We all, man, it's gonna make me out of my comfort zone. Bro, I'm happy to get out of my comfort zone, bro, because it's not like it was all peachy keen in this place of quote unquote comfort. So let me move somewhere else and nurture some new grass within this sort of ecosystem that I have. And so I love how you broke that down, Mike, and really sort of put that pin there. And I just want to encourage folks that the discomfort that we feel is a sign of us growing. It's a sign of us healing. It's a sign that we are getting kinetic from this space that we was in the direction of this place that we're trying to go.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Grow, obviously pointing out kind of what you shared with us. And, I reflected on that. and my reflection came up with, even on my 10 years of me forecasting, or not even forecasting because it's past, thinking of me as a bad parent, is probably a lot of dads' best days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know that my bad parent is probably someone's best day, right? Like, I'm the best parent. I say that to say you're right. I think what I turned it, just like Michael, what I turned it into is that I had to learn to love the way I needed to love. I was trying to love my children the way I saw other people love their children, right? And that's what I needed to do. And that took some time for me to realize that, right? So in that 10-year span, that was my growth to figure that out in so many ways. At least for me, it was my like way of figuring that out. And then I got to a space where I felt like my fatherhood elevated. And I was treating my son with a different kind of a love. My oldest son, obviously he was disciplined, that he got the younger father. My youngest son, Alex, who plays basketball with Mike on Saturdays, he'd never been spanked in his life by me. No, right? But I know my ass got threatened by a gang of house slippers, belts, extension cords.
First thing available.
I say, I laugh at it now, but my ass was clear. I say this to say, right, part of that process of recognizing that it took me some time, and I accepted that too. I accepted that time, right? We get so fixated with time and wanting things great. I know a lot of dads, when they're nervous about to become they're about to become a dad, and they're like, I'm gonna be the best dad. I'm like, own that shit. But also know you're gonna make mad mistakes. Mistakes are gonna happen. Don't harbor those mistakes. Because I think that is where, if I sat here and looked at that 10 years and I can tell you about 20 and like microscope those problems and say I was horrible at this, right? What I'm recognizing is that my love wasn't in the right place of where I wanted it to be, where when they felt it, they were like, that's dad's love, right? There was a lot of times I was giving them love and I was embodying my mom's. The way she loved, the way she touched, right? I was really like mimicking a lot of that. Where then after those 10 years, that mimics slowly, that repeating and doing of what I'm seeing slowly started fading. And I found, it's like finding my father identity with the right love that anchored it and was like, oh, this is the way I love. This is the way I do things. I don't need to buy a gang of gifts. He don't need to have the new Jordans, right? We don't need to go play catch. He don't like baseball anyways. You know what I'm saying? It was those things. I don't need to take him fishing because I don't like fishing. I collect fish. You take care of fish. You see what I'm saying? So I was starting to break that mold where maybe the first 10 years I was like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this, right? I was living in that mind trap.
Yeah.
So I love that you shared that, because I wanted to share that back in the sense of I know that I said that about myself, but I also know all the greatness I delivered in that 10 years through mistakes, through trial and errors, right?
So one of the things I love about this healing table is this conversation that we just had. We've now given other folks listening to this ways of seeing how we use a word and we kind of know what we mean, but it's very different when we articulate what we mean. Right. So in both of you expounding on what you felt, somebody able was now able to see themselves through the scenarios versus through the definitions of I feel like I'm filled. Right. Or I feel like I wasn't a good father. Right. Because that definition is going to mean a different thing to different folks. But when we walk through sort of that space, and so I love that we get a chance to let something breathe and break it down and even come back and say, hey, when you said this, or hey, could we use different words? Right. I think that. So saying that to say, I think the second thing is, Coach, when you talked about how I want to love my kids, one of the things I shifted in my mind, and I didn't use that, is uh, how do my kids want me to love them? And so one of the things we navigate, which I know this resonates with you, is that there are times where I think I'm loving them, and they like, bro, what are you doing? Like, and so we got to figure out what language that they want, right? Coach, to you saying, well, I like to collect fish, but I don't do that fishing, right? And so, like, one of my sons is in the tech. Yeah, I'm in the techie stuff, but I'm not a gamer on the techie side, right? So I can't necessarily, so my energy doesn't get into that. But we can both align on what's a dope monitor that we should be sort of. And so now I'm showing my love. The kids are sort of seeing where my love is coming from, but I've also got to be open to how are they sort of saying love me, right? This is that two part of that conversation where I think sometimes when we get to that word mistake, I think that mistake comes in. One, I didn't have the experience, but two, I'm going in thinking that, oh, you're this age, here's what you need. And they going, no. And then it's kind of a clunky feel and it's not, it's not sort of a feel good type of moment. They're feeling like not heard, not seen. And we going, well, I was just doing the naturalness of how these kids evolve right in front of our face. And sometimes it feels like it's leaps and bounds. When you start talking like this, when you start using that word, right? And so now there's this space of how I love you, how I want to love you, and what you need from me, how you need my love to show up, right? I got to be listening to those things so I can be in tune to now how I leverage and use my time. So I love what you said when you said how I want to love, because that's also important for us. And Mike, you said that too. If I want to be a good father, well, let me say, guys, I'm showing up to be a good father, whatever that takes. I'm going to figure it out. But my commitment to being a good father, the fact that I'm committed to how I want to love you, that I love you, man, that opens up the doors in a whole bunch of ways. But I want everybody to also be clear that it's also important for us to listen to them and how they communicate. Hey, here's how I best receive your love, or here's what this is. And so that it becomes this shared love because we are both growing in our understanding of each other, what each other needs, and how we like to receive love. Because it just doesn't happen relationally with our spouse. It literally happens with every child, right? Even within our parents, right? There's a point where I'm going to have to be a caregiver for my mom, right? That's going to change a little bit. Mama, you need to go your butt over here, right? So it'll be the first time I kind of get to be, right? But again, she's not going to receive it that way, bro. I brought you into this world, right? And so I got to be okay with that fact. She got to be okay with the fact that I'm pushing this wheelchair if that's the case, right? Or whatever the case may be. I'm making up this bed. So, anyways, I'm gonna stop.
I know that we're at time, but listening to y'all talk brought up something. Like Adam, you talked about loving your kids a certain way, and Girl, you talked about making sure you're loving the right way that your kids can receive. And what came to my head is, do some men know how to be loved?
We need a whole session on that.
And so, like, maybe we can dive deeper into that next time to say, like, what is your what is your love language, and how do you want to be loved? Like, in a way that you can feel, because I think about Father's Day, and they're like, well, all the guys get tools, and all the guys get this, and all the guys get that. And it's just like, it's so boxy. And so Maybe that's something we talk about in lesson whatever 6, episode 6.
The question I want in there, whether this the overarching question, almost in terms of the sort of who's helping you heal, but how do men love themselves? Like men, how do you show up loving yourself? How, like, we don't even talk about that. Even like, I think that's a whole conversation you open up, because loving ourselves is actually the first sign of love that we can actually sort of demonstrate and experience, right? So, given that we don't know this and all the things that we've talked about in this session and the previous one about stuff being shut down, well, if stuff is all shut down, obviously us loving ourselves is somewhere in there muted somewhere too.
Today's conversation was just the beginning of a deeper dialogue about healing in the face of silence. Remember, true growth doesn't come from performing strength. It comes from speaking the truths we've long held inside, keeping the conversations going, and always make space for your healing. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other, and thank you for sitting with us at the healing table.